I've always been a lake guy. I grew up that way. My earliest memories are of sunscreen, sticky arms, and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on the beach, and the sound of a boat motor buzzing in the background like a giant lazy mosquito. I got my sea legs pretty young, learned how to paddle a kayak before I even knew how to ride a bike. Every summer we were out there, no exceptions. The lake was just part of the rhythm that year. Schools, holidays, summer, lake. We weren't rich, but we weren't hurting either. Still, a boat was out of the question. I used to dream about it though, owning one, naming it something clever, taking it out at sunrise with a cooler full of beer and nobody but me and the water. Well, that never happened, obviously. Life doesn't always give you what you want, but I stayed close. I still made it a point to get out on the water every summer though. Paddleboards, kayaks, sometimes a friend with a bass boat, whatever it took to get wet and stay moving. I worked a lot, saved a little, and every few years I'd splurge on something a bit more fun, renting a jet ski for the weekend. That was the fix. It wasn't a boat, sure, but jet skis are fast. They're loud, they're powerful, and they cut through water like they're being built for revenge. And for those 2 days a year, I got to pretend like the lake actually belonged to me. The summer was one of those years. No distractions, no girlfriend, no tag-along friends who wanted to chill on the dock and just tan. Just me. I booked a little one-bedroom Airbnb near the marina, got Friday off work, and put the deposit down on a Sea-Doo. I had all my ducks in a row. Even made a dumb playlist for it labeled Wet and Reckless. I was leaning really hard into it. I got there Friday night, ate some takeout, and had a couple of beers while watching the sunset burn across the lake. I walked the shoreline after dark, felt the breeze, and listened to the waves lap at the rocks. It was everything I wanted, quiet, cool, and mine. And I slept like a corpse that night. The next morning, I was up early, cracked open an energy drink, and jogged down to the marina. The jet ski was already waiting for me, tied to the slip like a horse at the post. I signed the papers, got the rundown, then slipped on my life vest and fired that bastard right up. The engine screamed like it had something to prove. And that was that. I was off. The lake was mine again. Just like it had been when I was a kid, except now I had horsepower. I tore across the surface like a lunatic, racing strangers, skipping over boat wakes, carving loops in the glassy water. And for a while, it was everything I wanted it to be. But it didn't stay that way for long. It was around noon when I decided to pull in and gas up. I burned through half the tank already, which told you how hard I'd been running it. My arms were sore, my neck was sunburned, and my thighs ached from straddling that plastic rocket for the past few hours. I didn't care though. I felt good. I felt alive. Like I finally found the one space in the world where nobody could touch me. The restaurant by the dock served overpriced burgers and warm beer, but I wasn't there for any kind of culinary experience. I just wanted to sit on the patio, refuel myself, and enjoy the view while the jet ski guzzled down a tank of premium. I eased off the throttle and started cutting a wide turn toward the dock. And that's when it happened. A speedboat came ripping through the southern bend of the lake, big, white, and loud, easily clocking over 50 miles an hour. It cut across my path without warning, and I'll admit I swerved a little too fast trying to avoid it. That sudden panic move accidentally put me in its way. The guy then had to throttle down and veer off to keep from clipping me. We missed each other barely, but it was enough to piss him off. The boot looped around and slowed down beside me. There were 4 people on board, 3 dudes and 1 girl in a red bikini, all of them holding drinks. The driver stood up and cupped his hands to shout over the engine. "Watch where the fuck you're going," he yelled at me. I let it roll off at first, gave him a little wave and nodded like, "Yeah, my bad," then started idling toward the dock again, trying to put the moment behind me. But he wasn't done. He called me a fucking idiot again, and that's when I turned around and shouted back, "Hey man, you were hauling ass around and totally being blind. Don't put that on me. You cut me off. You were hot dogging around a marina." Yeah, keep talking," I said. I don't know why I said that last part. It was kind of an empty threat, but something about him just rubbed me the wrong way. He smirked, flipped me the bird, then cranked the throttle, kicking up a spray that soaked me from the knees down. Then he tore off back the way he came. I took a deep breath and forced myself to cool off. It was over. Idiot with a boat, yelling at the wind. I I didn't think too much else of it. I docked, fueled up, grabbed a burger and a beer, then hit the water again by 1:30. As soon as I was back on the water, I noticed him off in the distance. Same boat, white hull, blue trim, red bikini girl. They were floating a couple of 100 yards off the northern shore, idling, pretending to fish or sunbathe or whatever. I figured it was just a coincidence and then headed in the opposite direction. But then they started following me. Not obviously at first and not close, just matching my general direction. I'd cut south and they'd appear south. I'd race east and they'd eventually wander east. I stopped a few times and waited, told myself I was just being paranoid, but every time I started moving again, I'd see them, not long after. They kept their distance, but they never truly left me. Then without warning, they just disappeared. I took a long loop around the main stretch, zigzagging between other boats, jet skis, and pontoon boats. It was getting crowded. I figured maybe they just peeled off, maybe they finally just had their fun. Then I didn't hear anything, and I guess it was the silence that gave it away. The way the wind dropped, the buzz of the other engines fading like somebody hit mute on that whole lake. I turned and saw the bow of the boat cutting toward me, fast. No sound, just speed and white water, the sun glaring off their windshield. I didn't have time to react. 1 second I'm upright and the next I'm airborne, flung like a rag doll off that jet ski as their boat slammed into it from behind. I didn't even feel the hit. I felt weightlessness, then bone-jarring slap of the lake as I landed in it. Underwater, everything was still. No engine noise, no voices, just bubbles and pressure and the taste of blood in my throat. I kicked upward, broke the surface, and gasped. My jet ski was floating a dozen feet away, half sunk, bent like a soda can. The boat was arcing away now, already 100 feet off, slowing down. I thought they were coming to help, and I was wrong. They circled back real slow this time, with a girl laughing and one of the guys holding a phone out like he was recording me. I treaded water trying to scream, but every sound died in my throat. My vision was spotty, my head hurt. I wasn't sure if I'd blacked out. They started circling me, tight loops. The wake pulled at me, tugging me under and lifting me back up over and over. Every time I tried to swim toward my jet ski, they'd cut me off. I started to panic. Started to think they weren't just messing with me, they were actually enjoying all this. Then the guy at the wheel stood up and cut it hard. The boat swerved, then straightened and accelerated straight toward me. I tried to dive. I kicked and twisted my body sideways, but I was too slow. The hull clipped my head with a blunt crack, and all I saw was red, and not even metaphorically, just red, thick clouds of it blooming in the water like ink burst from a pen. I floated there, stunned, half conscious, drifting like driftwood in their wake. The boat circled me once more, and I heard more laughter. Somebody shouted something that I couldn't even understand. Then just like that, they peeled off, gone, and I was left alone. The sun was bright and the water around me tasted like copper. I was bleeding from the head, dizzy, and afraid to move too fast just in case I'd pass out. All I could do was float and hope that I didn't sink. I don't remember how long I floated for, minutes, maybe longer. Long enough to think that I might not make it. My arms stopped working right. My head throbbed like something was trying to punch its way out from the inside. Every time I blinked, the sun spun. But something inside me refused to give up, survival instinct or something, or plain old stubbornness. I locked my eyes on that ruined jet ski and started paddling toward it, one slow arm stroke at a time. My legs kicked like dead weight behind me, but I kept going. By some miracle, I actually reached it. It was cracked through the middle and was listing to one side, but still floating. I grabbed the side rail and heaved myself up, and slumped across the seat like a wet bag of laundry. It took me a few minutes to catch my breath, and the key was still in the ignition. I didn't think it would start anyway, but I turned. The engine coughed once, then again, and then somehow it caught, sputtering in this half-dead roar, but it was enough. I pointed the nose toward the dock and gunned it. That whole ride back felt like a fever dream. I was bleeding, barely conscious, steering with one hand while holding my head with the other. People stared at me as I pulled in, some concerned and some confused, others pulling out their phones. I didn't even tie up, just collapsed off the side and stumbled onto the dock like a drunk. The marina manager ran to me. Jesus Christ, what happened? All I could say was, "Speedboat, they hit me. Did it on purpose." An ambulance came not long after, then the cops, and I gave them everything I had. The description of the boat, the people, the time it happened. I expected to be written off or told they couldn't do anything. Instead, one of the deputies nodded at me and said, "Yeah, we've had multiple complaints about a boat like that today. You're not the first one." By sundown, they had 2 of them in cuffs, the driver and one of the passengers. I pressed charges, full send. Never heard what happened exactly after that. I wish I could have sued them. Honest to God, if I could have, I would have asked the judge for the boat. My boat now. But hey, a guy can dream. I've been surfing since I was 12 years old. Grew up just outside of Ventura, California, where the beaches aren't always perfect, but they were ours. It's where the locals either smoked weed or rode waves, usually both. I didn't care much about school and didn't care much about anything except the water. I came real close to dropping out during senior year just to chase that pro circuit, but that was really a fantasy. Our beach didn't get that seasonal big swell like Huntington or Santa Cruz. You couldn't get enough practice in, and my parents, God bless them, weren't about to bankroll some half-baked dream with a busted-out van and a sponsorship from a local taco shack. Still, I stuck with it, all through college, all through my 20s. Hell, even now when my knees pop and my shoulder gets sore after 3 hours. Surfing was the one thing that never really got old. Every time I paddled out, it was like I was 12 again, waiting to catch the next big one. Out of all the ways you can surf, dawn patrols, lazy summer afternoons, winter wetsuit sessions, night surfing was absolutely my favorite, hands down. There was something about it that just felt primal, like you were getting away with something. One of the piers near me had this huge halogen light that cast these long, eerie glows off into the surf. You couldn't see everything, but you could see enough. You had to trust the board more than the wave, and I liked that. It made me feel sharp and alive. The night itself was in late September of 1998, and the days were getting a lot shorter. I remember because I had this busted up 6'2" that I've been riding all summer. I just patched the tail fin for the 4th time. I was supposed to meet a couple of buddies out there, Dave and Micah, solid dudes. We surfed a lot together. I hadn't heard from them all day though, but this was pre-cell phone. So you just kind of show up and hope that your friends do too. Sometimes they didn't, and it's not that big of a deal. I got to the beach around 9, waxed my board, did a couple of stretches, then jogged out to the breakers under the glow of those pier lights. The tide was strong that night. Waves weren't clean, they were big, messy, with a strong sideways current. They had a punch. They could throw you if you didn't time it right, and I really liked that challenge. So I paddled out and didn't look back. At that point, I still thought it was going to be a perfect night, and that first hour was killer. The waves were coming in strong sets, 4 or 5 at a time, and I was catching nearly every one. I took a couple of hard slams too, one where I got rolled so bad that my leash nearly snapped. I came up sputtering and grinning like an idiot. That's the thing with night surfing. Everything feels amplified, the cold, the impact, the speed. Your instincts sharpen up quick, and there's no lifeguard watching, no beach crowd to impress or to disappoint. It's just you and the ocean, and of course, whatever's under it. I kept glancing back at the sand, expecting to see Dave and Micah running out, boards under their arms. I saw a couple of figures eventually, way down the shoreline, near the edge of the light spill. 2 guys walking along the sandbar, kinda just meandering. Looking like they were carrying something, bags maybe, or 6-packs. I figured that was them. Their silhouettes looked about right, and it made sense they'd want to watch a bit, maybe drink before paddling out, so I gave them a couple of long, dumb, "hey" waves from out on the break. But they didn't wave back. I figured maybe they couldn't see me in the dark. I kept surfing, caught a gnarly left-hand drop that pitched me forward hard, but I rode it clean. When I popped up, I saw them again, sitting in the sand now, just sitting there, watching, not moving much. I figured they must have gotten too stoned or drunk to bother getting wet. Fair enough, I've been there myself. But something about it just didn't sit right with me. They weren't talking. Not that I could hear from, at least in the water, and their posture was super weird. They weren't fiddling with anything, no bottles or joints, just planted, watching. I tried to ignore it and paddled back into position, sat on my board and watched the horizon. There was another good wave building. I leaned forward and started paddling. And that's when something bumped my leg. Not a tap, a bump, firm and gliding. A solid thick pressure that ran along my shin for way too long. 10, maybe 15 feet worth of movement. I froze. I didn't yell, I didn't move, just jerked my knees up and sat on my board like a statue. My brain started short-circuiting, playing the same word over and over. Shark. And then it happened again. This time it passed on my right side. The water lifted a little, and the shape beneath was darker than the rest. I turned and saw it, just for a second. The long rise of a dorsal fin slicing through the surface. No tail slap, no splash. Just that big fin breaking the water in a slow, lazy line. I lost it. I started paddling toward the shore like my life depended on it, screaming for help. But the words died out, swallowed up by the night surf and the hum of the pier lights buzzing overhead. I kicked and my arms were burning, a heartbeat screaming in my ears. Behind me, I could hear the water moving, not loud, not thrashing, just moving. Whatever it was pacing me, close but not shooting for me just yet. I looked back once, big mistake. I couldn't see the fin, but I could see the wake it left, a trailing V that cut across the black water, steady as hell. The beach felt a million miles away from me. My muscles were locking up, but I hit the shallows, finally. Caught a wave that pushed me forward like it wanted me out of there too, and I rode it belly down all the way in. My board skidded onto the wet sand. I flopped off it and crawled up it like I'd just been born again. I stood up shaking, gasping, and holding my side. And that's when I looked up and saw them again, the two guys on the beach. They were a lot closer now, standing. Not Dave and not Micah, not even close. One was tall, really tall, with a mop of curly hair and no shirt on, just a loose flannel tied around his waist. The other was shorter, built like a fire hydrant, holding a can of beer and wobbling a little. "Hey," I said, breathless. "Do you guys see that? That big-ass shark just circled me out there, and I mean big. It's still out there." They didn't answer me. Instead, they just took a couple of steps forward. The tall one just grinned at me. "You out here all by yourself?" And that voice made my stomach turn, slurred but focused, off somehow like he was drunk but knew exactly what he was doing. "I was supposed to meet my friends," I said, backing away, trying to grab my board. "They didn't show." "Guess they left you hanging, huh?" the shorter guy said. He crushed his beer can and then tossed it aside. I took another step back from them. "Look, man, I'm just trying to get my stuff and go." "Yeah," the tall one said. "Let's help him get his stuff." And then they rushed me. I didn't have time to run, and I barely had time to lift up my board before they tackled me into the sand. The tall one hit me first, a knee to my ribs, and then a hand around my throat. The other kicked my side and then again. I curled up trying to scream, but he jammed a fist in my mouth. My lip split. I tasted blood and fist began to rain down on my head and my neck. They laughed as one of them shouted, "Surf's up, bitch," and kicked my board out toward the tide. The shorter one yanked his zipper down and pissed on me, full stream, right on my chest. I was so stunned that I hardly moved out of the way. I tried to fight back, landed this weak kick, and it earned me another elbow to the ribs. Then, just like that, they were walking away, like it was all a gag, just a couple of assholes looking for a soft target. "Should have stayed out there with the shark," one of them called back, laughing. And then they just vanished off into the dark, and I was left there, covered in piss, sand in my eyes, and my ribs were on fire. Behind me, out in that black water, something was still moving. I laid there for a long time, didn't even move, didn't cry, just stared at the glow of the pier lights through my swollen eyes, listening to the ocean breathe in and out like it hadn't seen anything. My side throbbed, my lip was split open and bleeding in the corner of my mouth. The piss was already drying on my chest. Eventually, I sat up. Every muscle ached, and I shuffled towards the edge of the surf and let the waves just rinse me off. Not really because it helped, but because I couldn't stand the smell. The water felt colder now, cold and toxic. I kept watching it, half expecting to see that fin again, cutting through the shore break, back to finish what those two didn't. Eventually, my board washed back in, dinged up and sandy, nose cracked from where they kicked it. I grabbed it anyway and limped back to my car. I hardly remember the drive home, just the way the steering wheel felt against my busted knuckles. My vision kept doubling. I kept thinking about that fin in the water too, the way those guys laughed at me. I never saw them again. I didn't go to the cops either, because what would I say? I got beat up on the beach by two drunk strangers in the dark? They pissed on me? Unless you were dead or famous, nobody really gave a shit. After that night, what stuck with me wasn't even the shark. It wasn't even the beating, it was the moment after. Standing there bleeding, chest burning, salt water stinging, and realizing that I was completely alone. That nobody saw it, nobody stopped it. Just me, the water, and whatever was in it. I still surf to this day, I'm not going to give that up, I never will. But I don't surf at night anymore, especially alone. And not anywhere near that pier. There was a time in my life where I swore that I was never going to go on a cruise. Not because of the water or the money or even the fear of getting sick. It was the crowds. I've never been much for being trapped anywhere with thousands of strangers around me. Elevators make me edgy, so the idea of spending a week sealed inside a floating shopping mall filled with screaming children and bottomless buffets almost felt like a punishment, not a vacation. But my wife Dana, however, disagreed. She loved the idea. For years, she'd bring it up in passing. "Wouldn't it be fun?" she'd ask, while scrolling through photos of sunset decks and couples clinking champagne glasses. I'd scoff at her. "They're just floating trailer parks," I'd say. "Tacky, noisy, and full of people trying to outdrink their own boredom." But then came the theme cruises, bands that we liked, food festivals, comedy specials, and I started to come around, slowly. We agreed that if we did it, we'd do it right. No budget cabins, no last-minute booking. We'd treat it like a real trip, the kind that people look back on when they're old and tired, trying to remember what it felt like to be alive. We planned it down to the hour, booked a stateroom with a private balcony, picked a 7-day route with multiple ports. We lost a combined 35 pounds so we wouldn't feel like couch cushions and swimwear. Dana even splurged on new luggage, which for her was the final sign that she was really excited. This was early 2019, February. We had just got out before COVID became a 5-letter curse word. I'll admit it, those first couple of days were pretty incredible. We boarded in Galveston, and for the moment we stepped onto the ship, it felt like somebody had dropped us off into a different world. The crew was polished and polite. The food was 5-star. There were steel drum bands on the pool deck, karaoke in the lounges, and open bars that kept the cocktails flowing like rivers of rum. The air smelled like sunscreen and fried shrimp and salt. Dana kept squeezing my hand, whispering to me, "See, I told you." I honestly have never felt so wrong in my life, and not in a bad way. It was like waking up in somebody else's body and realizing they had better taste. We spent that first night dancing, drinking, and laughing until we collapsed into bed, grinning like idiots. It was one of the best days that we'd had in years. It's too bad that didn't last though. Day 2 was even better. We woke up late, ate French toast with mango syrup, drank mimosas in the solarium, and booked a couple's massage for the afternoon. There was a surprise concert that evening too, some B-list pop singer Dana used to play in the cars years ago. We danced to it like idiots, a little drunk, more than a little sunburned, and didn't care one bit about it either. It was warm out on the deck, the stars were clear, and the ocean looked like black glass stretching into forever. We got back to our cabin after midnight, laughing about how bloated we were. I kicked off my sandals, she stripped down into a swimsuit, and then we stood on the balcony drinking rum and pineapple juice out of plastic cups, almost like we were 20 again. I remember how happy she looked, relaxed in a way that I hadn't seen since before her mother passed. I made a joke about skipping foreplay, going straight for the blackout sleep, and she swatted me with a towel. We were brushing our teeth when this knock came, sharp and urgent. It actually scared the shit out of me. I opened up the door expecting a crew member with some kind of emergency update or worse, a medical alert. Instead, it was a guy that I vaguely recognized from earlier in the day. Early 40s, sunburnt nose, receding hairline, Hawaiian shirt that didn't fit right. He had one eye half closed and smelled like whiskey. His buttons were mismatched, like he'd thrown himself together in some kind of hurry. "Hey," he said, no intro, no smile. "You guys gotta keep it down." I blinked. "What?" He leaned in. "The screaming, the fighting, it's been going on for like half an hour. My wife and I are trying to sleep." I turned around and looked at Dana, still brushing her hair in the mirror. The TV was off, no music, no yelling, just us winding down. "I think you got the wrong room, man," I said carefully. "We haven't been fighting." He didn't move. "We're in the cabin next door. We heard it clear as day." Dana came over then. "What's going on?" The guy leaned sideways as if to see past me. "She was yelling at you, man, screaming like full-on meltdown." Dana just frowned. "Nobody's been yelling." "We haven't even raised our voices," I said to him. He just stared at us really intensely, like he was trying to read something behind our eyes. "You're lying," he said. "What?" "You're covering it up. I don't know what's going on in there, but it's not normal. I know what we heard." Now, I probably should have closed the door right then, should have just said goodnight and locked the bolt, but something in his eyes just stopped me. That kind of glassy conviction you can see in some kind of conspiracy nut, like he needed it to be true. He turned and walked away, and then 30 seconds later, he came back with his wife. She looked just as off, blonde, rail thin, sweater tied around her shoulders like it was 1986. Her pupils were huge, her mouth was twisted from the booze. "We heard you fighting," she said. "You were screaming and banging on the walls. I even thought I heard something break." Dana laughed, but it came out wrong. "We were drinking rum and brushing our teeth." The woman just shook her head. "No, that's not true." The man then stepped forward. "You're hiding something in there." And I actually laughed at that. "What are you talking about?" "You've got somebody in there, somebody you're hurting." And just like that, the tone flipped from misunderstanding to accusation, fast. Dana stiffened up. "All right, time to go." But the guy didn't budge. "You're not fooling us. We know what we heard. And I know what's about to happen if you don't get the fuck away from our door," I snapped. "I'm gonna call security." "You should," he said, stepping closer. "Call them. We'll tell them you're holding somebody hostage in there, that there's been violence. We'll see who they believe." That's when I saw the woman reach into her purse and pull out a phone, already recording. It hit me hard and sudden. They weren't confused. They were setting us up. Dana reached for the phone. "Stop recording," but the woman pulled back. "Don't touch me," she screamed. Then came more shouting from both of them, accusations flying like shrapnel. Dana and I had backed up into our room as the man stepped inside. He crossed the threshold, eyes darting around for any signs of bullshit. I quickly shoved him back. "Get the hell out of our room." He grabbed my shirt, and then Dana kicked him square in the ribs. The man went down like a bag of cement. His wife screamed and launched herself at Dana, who ducked and punched her in the side with this clean, practiced hook. She taught kickboxing 3 nights a week, and she'd just gone full defensive mode. The hallway exploded with voices, doors opening, people yelling. 2 crew members ran up, one with a walkie-talkie, the other holding a flashlight like a weapon. They screamed for everybody to get back, but the woman was clawing at Dana's arms now, and the man was trying to pull himself up by grabbing my ankle. It was chaos, pure and simple. The hallway wasn't wide enough, and neither was our cabin. It felt like we were trapped in a damn broom closet full of teeth and elbows. Dana shoved the woman into the hallway, and the woman hit the opposite wall and crumpled. I stomped the guy's hand and pushed him out by the shoulders. One of the crew members finally took control, grabbing the man in a headlock and yanking him away. The other stepped between us and raised a hand. Dana was breathing hard. I was bleeding from a scratch on my neck. The floor was littered with plastic cups, a broken lamp, and one of Dana's flip-flops. The couple screamed about cover-ups and conspiracies as they were dragged down the hallway, fighting and screaming. The staff had gotten between us, finally, but it wasn't over. Not even close. While one of the crew members tried to check on Dana and me, the other attempted to wrangle the man and his wife, only to get shoved hard into the hallway wall. The drunk couple then took off running, barefoot, wild-eyed, and shouting as they went. The man screamed that she's in there, she's tied up, they're killing her. "Call the captain," the woman screamed. "They've got blood in the drains." We rushed out into the hallway, stumbling over the broken lamp and our scattered things. The crew were already shouting into the radios, calling for backup. One of them told us to stay in the room, and we didn't listen. We followed the noise. They made it down to one level, into one of those weird transitional halls between staff access and guest decks. Dimmer and narrower, one of those areas that you walk through quickly without really thinking about it. But now that they were down there, yelling at the doors, pounding their fist against the walls, I could hear them through the metal, calling out to non-existent people, accusing ghosts. The staff caught up with them just as we did, but again, there wasn't much room. Only one security guard had reached us, the others were still en route. That's when the couple turned on us again. He came at me with both fists raised, and I threw my arms up to block, but caught a hit in the jaw, and sent stars across my vision. I fell against the wall, half dazed. Dana didn't hesitate. She ducked low and drove her shoulder into the woman's gut, lifting her off the ground and slamming her hard to the floor. The man tried to grab Dana's hair from behind, but she spun and elbowed him in the face, then followed up with this brutal side kick to the ribs. He folded immediately. I was on my feet again, heart pounding, as the staff finally broke through. 2 more guards appeared and pulled the couple apart, then got them face down on the floor. Yeah, baby. They screamed the whole time. About drugs, about a girl tied to a chair, about hearing voices through the vents. I didn't say anything, and neither did Dana. They were taken to the medical bay and locked in for observation. I was never told exactly what happened after that. The head of security apologized personally the next morning, gave us drink vouchers and spa credits for the disruption. We took them, finished the cruise, and we even danced again. But we never opened our cabin door without checking that peephole first. And I'm sure you can guess this, but I haven't stepped on another cruise ship since. I am not what you call an outdoors guy. I don't hunt, I don't camp, and up until that summer, I'd never fished a day in my life. I wasn't against it exactly, it just never really grabbed me. But my friends eventually wore me down. There were 4 of us in that group, and the other 3 had been trying to get me on the water for years. So that July, I finally said yes, and I'm not really sure why. Maybe it was because the heat was making me stupid. Maybe I just needed some kind of change, or maybe I just finally had run out of excuses. They pitched it to me as this easygoing, laid-back float, cold beers, open lake, no pressure. You just sit back and cast, one of them told me. It's like therapy, except it's a lot cheaper. So we headed out on a Friday morning. I brought sunscreen, snacks, and 2 Dramamine tabs just in case. My buddy Kent owned the boat, some off-brand aluminum frame fishing boat with a makeshift canopy and a cooler that smelled like old shrimp. He said it was solid, swore he just fixed up the engine himself, and I took him for his word. He'd always been a tinkerer, built his own smoker last year, fixed his own plumbing, so when he told me the motor had been touched up, I figured we'd be fine. We launched off at a reservoir just outside of town. Deep water, no cell reception, surrounded by nothing but trees and rocks and old trails that nobody really hiked anymore. Kent called it God's favorite fishing hole, and we shoved off around 7 a.m. with the sun just peeking over the tree line. It was peaceful, That kind of calm that feels really earned too, but also borrowed in a way. I didn't know it yet, but we were about to earn every second of it the hard way. The first hour went smoother than I really expected it to. I got the hang of casting, even caught a little bluegill. The guys cheered me like I'd just landed a shark, and Kent showed me how to thread a worm without losing half of it. And Dustin, our designated smartass, just kept yelling at me, "Reel within 10," every time I hooked something. Eventually I started to relax, and the beers did help. That steady rhythm of rocking on the water, the soft lap of the waves against the hull, the sound of cicadas building off in the trees. The boat itself looked like it had seen better days, but it held. Kent then steered us to a few different spots, some tucked low under cliffs and others wide out in the open. He kept an eye on the engine every time he started it, gave the pull cord a couple of yanks, listened close, and then muttered something under his breath, but every time it worked. A little rough on the idle, but it pushed us out just fine. I'd say around noon we hit the flat off the eastern ridge of the lake. Calm water, lots of shade, barely even a breeze. And that's when things started to get a little weird. The engine gave a kind of whine when Kent shut it off. He tapped the side of the motor and muttered, "Damn, primer might be sticky again." I looked it over. "You sure this thing's alright, man?" Kent immediately waved me off, purring like a kitten, just a picky one. So I let it go. We anchored and fished for another hour. I caught 2 more. Dustin dropped the tackle box overboard and screamed. The sun got higher and hotter. By the time we decided to move again, I was sweating through my shirt and thinking about lunch. Kent then stood up, twisted the throttle, and gave that starter cord a hard yank. And that's when the engine exploded. It didn't stall or sputter, it detonated. A sharp bang followed by a flash of orange, then a fireball that leaped 3 feet in the air. The noise was deafening. I hit the floor of the boat out of reflex, ears ringing, skin crawling from the heat. Dustin yelled, Mike yelled something as well, but I didn't catch it. The motor was fully engulfed in flames. Thin black smoke was pouring out of it, stinking of gasoline and scorched paint. Fire licked up the back end of the boat, dancing across the metal siding like it wanted to eat the whole thing. "Water!" Kent shouted, grabbing a plastic bait bucket and tossing lake water at the blaze. It hissed and popped, but didn't go out. "Shit, it's the gas line." We scrambled. I found an old cooler lid and used it to splash more water on it. It barely seemed to help though. The flames were moving fast. Mike was panicking, already halfway jumping overboard. Kent yelled for the emergency kit. "It's under the center bench, red case." I dove for it, yanked open the latch and found it. A beat up red plastic canister with rusted safety pin and a fading sticker that said, "Fire suppressant, pull pin and spray directly." "I got it," I screamed. Kent spun around, shielding his face from the heat. "Use it now." I pulled the pin and squeezed. A white fog erupted from the nozzle, thick and bitter smelling, like powdered metal and bleach. I sprayed the engine until foam coated everything, motor, railing, floor. The fire sputtered, fizzled, and then one last flare as it choked out with a wet hiss. Smoke was hanging in the air and nobody was moving. The boat was blackened at the back, the motor was completely done, melted in places, wires hanging out like burned hair. We sat there soaked in sweat and foam, catching our breath in stunned silence. The boat hadn't sunk, and I guess that was really the only good news, but that engine was dead. We were a long way from shore too. We didn't say much after that. The adrenaline had left us completely drained and quiet. The smoke thinned out, but the back of the boat was still warm to the touch. And that engine looked like it had been pulled straight from some kind of plane wreck. Kent stared at it like it had betrayed him, and I guess maybe it had. "It's like a mile to get back," Dustin muttered. "Maybe more." Mike didn't answer. He was still pale and kneeling at the middle of the boat, hands shaking slightly. I handed him a bottle of water and started digging through the emergency kit again. No radio, no flares, just a second fire canister, a poncho, and a whistle. "Guess we're rowing," I said. Kent nodded. "Yeah, we're rowing." We grabbed whatever we could, paddles, a square net handle, even a broken oar somebody had stuffed under a bench seat. It wasn't graceful and it wasn't fast, but we did move, inch by inch, splash by splash, started creeping back toward the boat launch. 3 hours, that's how long it took us. My shoulders burned, my palms were blistered, but we didn't stop. The sun scorched us from above and the lake mocked us with this perfect stillness. We passed 2 boats along the row. Both waved like it was nothing. Nothing was wrong, and nobody waved back either. When we finally hit the dock, nobody cheered. We climbed out like survivors, loaded the boat without a word, and promised to never really speak of it again. Later that night, I found a burn on the back of my calf where some of the flames must have kissed me during the chaos. I hadn't even felt it at the time. That was my first fishing trip. It was also my last. I'll eat fish, sure. I'll even stand on a dock, but if you ever see me on a boat again, just know something has gone terribly wrong.